Fade in. The wee hours of July 20th, 1949. A well-dressed celebrity and his entourage exit a swanky Hollywood nightclub on the glamorous Sunset Strip into the impending dawn. Suddenly, the stillness is shattered by the blast of gunfire. It is one of the most sensational shootings in Hollywood history. But this is no movie. The target of the hit is not an actor, but real-life gangster Mickey Cohen, a Hollywood celebrity in his own right. Colorful, flamboyant, image-conscious, Mickey Cohen is a new breed of gangster, the high-profile Hollywood hood.
If you lived in L.A. in the 40s and you didn't know who Mickey Cohen was, you had to be in a mental institution. You know, he was everybody's ideal of a gangster in this town.
Mickey Cohen was made for this town, or more accurately, was made by this town. He appears to be the image of the lovable mobster, charming, decent, and a true character. Rubbing shoulders with celebrities like evangelist Billy Graham and Sammy Davis Jr., while at the same time, he was the ruthless king of Hollywood's dark underbelly of vice and corruption.
Somebody once said Mickey was one of the nicest killers you'll ever want to meet.
Mickey Cohen's story is the stuff great movies are made of, full of fame, fortune, action, comedy, and tragedy. And in a town which manufactures myths, Mickey Cohen would become a legend. Mickey Cohen grew up a tough street punk with a third-grade education. He worked hard to recast himself as a stylish gentleman, a sharp dresser who never wore the same suit twice, a compulsive hand washer who never felt clean. In a town where everything is phony, Mickey fit right in.
Mickey was probably one of the cleanest living guys you would ever meet. He never smoked, he never drank, he didn't use profanity in front of women, he conducted himself always like a gentleman.
On the other hand, he was fierce, brutal, and fearless, a small man with big ambitions. Mickey Cohen fought his way to the top until he controlled the City of Angels, making many powerful friends and enemies along the way.
He didn't think small, he thought big. And being a small man, you know, he used to put this into practice. He would go up against anybody.
In 1937, Mickey Cohen is 24 years old and eking out an existence on the streets of New York and Chicago as a featherweight boxer and small-time criminal, learning the gangster trade from mentors like Al Capone and Frank Costello. Mickey has a reputation for being a tough scrapper in the ring, but it's when he bludgeons a rival in a busy Chicago restaurant that things get a little too hot for him in the Windy City, and the local bosses decide to send him back to his hometown of Los Angeles.
And it was just about this time that the New York people were sending Ben Siegel out here. And so they says, let's send Mickey with him. He would be a good right-hand man for Ben Siegel.
In the 1930s, Los Angeles is a glamorous dreamland, full of sunshine, palm trees, and movie stars. For the most part, the only gangsters in the City of Angels are on the big screen.
This was a very, very clean town. Nothing like Detroit or Chicago.
Our gangster element was small fry compared to what was going on in the eastern cities.
Organized crime is in its infancy in sunny Los Angeles, and when Mickey arrives, the only real boss in town is Jack Dragna.
Jack Dragna was an old-time Italian gangster that was running things at that time, but it was a very small operation. He didn't have a racing wire. He just had some few little casinos, a little bookmaking, and things like that.
Los Angeles is the land of dreams and overnight successes, and Mickey Cohen arrives like so many other wannabes, hoping to make a name for himself. Rather than hooking up with Siegel, Mickey makes a bold and audacious move when he heists a lucrative bookie joint that turns out to be Jack Dragna's. He has announced his arrival on the Los Angeles scene in a big way. Dragna is livid and calls for Mickey's head. It's up to Siegel to try to keep the peace.
Their first encounter wasn't real good because Ben wanted him to kick back the money. Mickey refused, and he said he wouldn't kick any money back to his own mother.
Siegel and Cohen eventually hammer out an agreement, and Mickey begins carving out a role for himself in the LA crime world. He quickly organizes the men who will become the core of his gang, the close-knit group of tough guys who will be his trusted aides and good friends.
Mickey had places set up all through Hollywood, Burbank, Pasadena, every place. Mickey had bookmakers almost on every street corner.
But in the late 30s Hollywood, the real power brokers in town are the movie moguls.
Those were the days of L.B. and Jack Warner, Harry Cohen. They practically ran this town. They had their own police forces themselves.
These guys were tough guys, and they were pioneers type of guys. And they didn't want to answer to anybody. It's like the bosses at the studios were kind of gangsters in a way themselves.
All right, take it.
And as such, this crowd loved to rub shoulders with real-life gangsters, more than often patronizing the gambling parlors and bookie joints that flourished in the post-Prohibition era.
A lot of times you would see all kinds of movie stars, big money people, all these people were going to gambling because they thought that it was very glamorous and fun.
There they go.
Gambling is a growth industry among Hollywood's elite who love the services Mickey Cohen provides.
I mean, a lot of these people, Clark Gable and real classy guys that love to rub elbows with these thugs and hoods. And there was, for every person that went to the track, there was 100 that went to the bookies.
Likewise, Mickey Cohen is seduced by Tinseltown.
He liked the image of Hollywood. He liked the glamour of Hollywood, and he liked to convey that. He was immaculately dressed whenever you saw him, and that reflected on his personality.
He was a classy dresser and never wore the same thing twice. I must have met Mickey hundreds of times. I never saw him in the same suit.
As Cohen begins to recreate himself, he tries to emulate Ben Siegel's handsome style and charm. Although Mickey doesn't quite have the same suave good looks, Ben becomes a mentor and a role model.
Ben Siegel looked like a movie star. Mickey Cohen looked like a wannabe movie star. But they both dressed the same way. I mean, they were both immaculate in their appearances.
In his autobiography, he says, "With Benny, I became involved in a higher element of people. Then I started to realize how crude and rough I was. My way of life was so bad. Atmosphere has got to do with a whole lot of bringing up a man." In fact, Mickey's upbringing is a rough one. By necessity, he is a fighter from a very young age.
He was the youngest of 6 children, and they had a very tough life. His father died when Mickey was just a few days old, and his mother came here and opened up a little mom-and-pop grocery store in Boyle Heights, which was at that time was considered a Jewish slum.
By the time he is 12 years old, he is in the ring fighting. Being small and Jewish in a rough neighborhood, boxing is one way to earn respect.
His brother Harry was in Cleveland, and he was promoting fights. That's how Mickey started his fight career. He used to go to New York and Chicago and all those places, fighting, and then he used to pull holdups at the same time to supplement his income.
Although he came from a rough background, in Hollywood one could be whoever one chose to be. And Mickey begins a deliberate effort to remold himself in the guise of a gentleman and to cultivate an air of refinement.
He hired a tutor to teach him table manners, how to speak, a little bit better how to dress, trying to teach him to be more of a gentleman.
He was a street person constantly trying to polish his image, and that's the best way I can describe him.
Well, forget I'm an uneducated person. I'm not out of a day of schooling. And it enabled me to meet people going into my way of life that I would have never been able to meet otherwise.
While Mickey tries to hide his crude character and lack of education, there are certain realities he can't escape. Being unable to add or subtract made counting and dividing the massive amounts of cash that passed through his hands a constant problem. So he came up with a simple solution. As Mickey says in his book, "Believe me, I didn't know how to count too well. But we'd put $20 bills in one stack, tens in one stack, fives in another, singles all in a big bundle, and we'd go like one for you and one for me. That's the way we divided the money. What he lacked in education, Mickey more than made up for in street smarts. A rising star in the crime world, hobnobbing with celebrities, Mickey becomes a celebrity in his own right in the eyes of the public, not as a criminal, but as a good Samaritan.
The LA Examiner was the paper of record on crime in those days. Had a case in which they were reporting on the story of this old woman who was being evicted from her home, and what an outrage it was.
According to the story, an old woman had taken her radio in to be fixed by Alfred Pearson, but then she couldn't afford to pay the repair bill of $8.91. Pearson had gone to court and forced the woman's house to be auctioned, which he then bought for $26. The story had become a cause célèbre around Los Angeles. Since the court's hands were tied, the police asked Mickey if he could do something to get Pearson to give the woman back her home.
So Mickey sent his men down, and they practically beat this Pearson to death.
And the Examiner began describing Mickey Cohen as one of the patron saints of the disenfranchised in Los Angeles.
And there was a famous picture. It was Mickey and the Seven Dwarfs. They were trying to make Mickey Cohen look like Snow White and these 7 hoods.
Eventually, Mickey and his men go to trial for the Pearson beating and are acquitted. But Mickey's Snow White image is about to be stained with blood. By the late 40s, with Ben Siegel gone, Cohen becomes embroiled in a violent struggle for control of the LA rackets, the bloodiest gang war in the city's history. Mickey Cohen can't stop washing his hands. It's a compulsion, an obsession, which will rule him throughout his life, and ironically, one day, save his life. As he says in his autobiography, "When I go out to a restaurant, I use up all of their toilet paper and all of their hand towels and all of their linen towels. I hope people don't think I'm goofy when on the outside everybody ridicules and makes fun of that, but it's my habits."
He constantly, no matter where he went, when he came to the police press room, the first thing he would do after meeting everybody was run in and wash his hands.
When Mickey first got his apartment in Brentwood, Mickey used to take very long showers. His showers could last 2-3 hours. And the one day there was a knock at the door, and I went there, and the landlord was there, and he says, "Mickey's taking such long showers that he used up all the hot water for everybody in the building. There was no more hot water."
Today, this affliction is diagnosed as obsessive-compulsive disorder and can be treated. But at the time, people wondered if Mickey was trying to wash the blood off his hands.
I have killed no man that, in the first place, didn't deserve killing. In all of these what you would call killings, I had no alternative. It was either my life or their life.
Although Mickey cultivates an image as an affable, big-hearted, nice guy, beneath the veneer, he is dangerous, as rival gangster Maxie Shaman finds out when he tries to even a score with Mickey.
Mickey was in his office, and Maxie Shaman came rushing in, busted right in his office and started hollering and screaming at Mickey, and he pulled a gun. But he didn't know that Mickey had a gun that he could take out quickly. And when Maxie Shaman was going to shoot Mickey, Mickey shot Maxie Shaman first and killed him.
Having corpses laying around the office was an occupational hazard in Cohen's line of work, and as usual, he calls his fixer, lawyer Jerry Giesler.
And Giesler says, "Well, look, Mickey, don't worry about it. Just get $25,000, get it to me tonight, and don't worry about it." Mickey got him the $25,000, and the case was all handled. Self-defense.
He never had one conviction because he had a favorable image in the community, and he always was saying that, it was a frame-up, that police were out to get him.
He could never get convicted by anybody.